Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the Two Mics, and I'm going to give you old Energy Boy, MG, to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha. It's like sticking your face into a fire. Why mess around with the features you have? That's how I feel about my voice. What do you call a wooden vessel with three plank-like seats in it? Plank-like seats.
And three planks sitting on them.
Yeah. And three pairs of rollocks with oars.
What are you talking about?
What's a rowing boat? You know, Old Amsterdam, I sure a mouse, where you understand.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. Together we are the Two Mics, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Parry for the first night of the week. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. And what a weekend again it was, with so many spectacular sporting events. I did have a conversation with the all-seeing when it comes to racing, Mr. Brazil last week.
Yeah. Did you?
And told him that, unfortunately, Tony McCoy would not win the Grand National. Probably wouldn't get into the first three because after analysing the bloodstock value of the horse and the mental ideology of the jockey and putting the two together into a mathematical equation, I worked it couldn't happen, and it didn't happen.
Lucky you backed Rocky Creek, though, which didn't even come anywhere near finishing, did it? Did it finish, Rocky Creek?
It fell. Sorry, why is that funny?
How come your bloodstock analysis didn't suggest that might happen?
Why do you take pleasure out of mocking the demise of a horse?
Because
it could have been badly injured when it fell.
You're always making out what an expert you are on these things. And,
I didn't say I was an expert.
Is that the only bet you made, by the way? Did you only make one bet on the National?
No, I bet on 8 horses.
Did you?
And I got a return on Alvarado of £72.50 against a stake of £150.
Really?
So, yeah.
You mean altogether?
Altogether, yeah.
So you lost a few quid?
Yeah, I lost a few quid, because the thing Alvarado came in...
Came fourth?
It came fourth. It came at 25 to 1.
That's right, yeah.
So I got like 6 to 1
Yeah, because I did £10 each way on Alvarado, and I got 60 quid back.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which was pretty good.
I got that plus my stake and whatever, so it's £72.50.
Yeah, well, I got 60 all told. I don't know how that works out.
Right, OK.
But, I'm not an expert on horse racing. I just always do rather well at it. And my son, of course, picked the winner.
Yes, I heard that. That was excellent. £2 each way.
£2 each way, £66.
So generous of you.
£66.50.
My brother-in-law bet £10 each way.
Yeah.
He got 432 quid. And he worked it out himself. He looked at he takes the Daily Telegraph, because he lives in Stockbroker Belts, just down the road from me.
Right.
So he's looking through the runners and riders, and he worked out that, hang on, if this guy won it last year on a not-so-favoured horse, perhaps he could do it again this year.
Yeah.
So it was logic. You know, the sort of logic not many people applied.
Yeah.
But that was the sort of logic...
Well, funnily enough, Alvarado for me was a last-minute choice because I'd actually gone to put money on
Alvarado.
You think Desperado by the Eagles? Yeah, great song that, by the way. Please don't sing it.
No, well.
The Alvarado thing, I was going to bet on Carlitos, whatever it was, because I quite like that movie Carlitos Way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the only system I've got.
Sure.
It's a sort of random one. And when they told me it wasn't running, I was like, oh, right, OK. And I was literally at the window, and they said, well, here, pick another one. And I literally just chose Alvarado because it sounded a bit like avocado.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I picked the one that came second last year, Balthazar King.
Yeah, I had that one as
well. And that got me nowhere as well.
But Mr. Brazil had actually told me that Druid's nephew was the one to be on.
Right.
And so I had some money on that as well.
Where'd that go?
And it was winning up until about, I think, four jumps to go.
And
it came over one of the jumps and just kind of staggered slightly. And when they sometimes go down on their front...
That wasn't Ruby Walsh's horse, was it?
I don't know, actually. It might
because Ruby Walsh ended up waving a checkered flag.
Red colours.
Ruby Walsh was the guy on the course waving the check flag to warn horses to avoid one of the jumps towards the end because there was, an obstacle on the other side of the fence.
It was brilliantly brave of him.
It was brilliantly brave, dangerous. Yeah, but also I didn't realise that in racing they had a checkered flag very, very similar to the Formula One flag that I'd seen Lewis Hamilton pass.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I hadn't seen him pass. I saw him pass the following morning.
Right.
Could have been the same flag.
What, you mean a
black
and white checkered flag at the end?
Black and white checkered flag.
At the end?
At the end of the race.
Right, but that was the one Ruby Walsh was waving.
No, you fool.
What's that what you're saying?
There's 2 black and white flags here.
Yeah.
One of them was at Aintree, where Truby Walsh was waving to stop the horses from jumping over the fence.
So he was waving a black and white flag?
Yeah, I said that,
Well, he shouldn't have been waving that because he wasn't at the end, surely.
No, you don't understand. In horse racing, the black and white checkered flag is hazard.
Oh, OK, I see.
In motor racing, it is end of race.
It's lucky you're not in both sports. You'd be confused.
Yeah, exactly. You would get confused. But anyway, that was the buy.
So that's more like a red flag in motor racing, isn't it?
More like a red flag, absolutely
I can see that you're getting confused already.
I'm not getting confused.
Early stage.
I tell you what did confuse me over the weekend. And, you'd say me that I keep falling out with people of towns around Britain.
Well, there is a list currently underway.
But I simply cannot get my head around the fact that Sunderland fans, when they went 2 or 3-0 down early in the game...
Started walking out.
Yeah. Now, hang on.
I saw you tweeting about that, yeah.
It was ludicrous. The last time they did that was a massive protest against a manager who had a history of failure.
Yeah.
And they were trying to put pressure on the club to get rid of him, Gus Poyet. And they did.
Yeah.
So they walked out. So then the new manager takes over. He has a fantastic first result against Newcastle in the North East Derby. Wins 1-0.
Yeah.
That would have, I'd have thought, bought him some time.
But as we were saying earlier, that seems to happen every season. Every time they get a new manager, they seem to play Newcastle and they seem to win.
But it's mad. And then, so the first time the new manager starts going a bit wonky, which is just over 120 minutes into his whole reign at the club, they're all getting them walking out again. I mean, any manager at Sunderland who thinks that you're going to get the backing of the fans and the crowd are just deluded.
Yeah.
Because the Sunderland fans, for some unknown reason, cannot even tolerate half an hour of bad news in a game before they decide, I've had enough of this, I'm going home. Why do they bother coming to the game in the first place?
But it's almost as though they're waiting for a moment to sort of walk out, right? Because
it's like great drama.
Same with the Newcastle fans. We're getting Newcastle fans tweeting us saying, we've had enough. Carver out, Ashley out. I mean, that was what they said about Pardew. If Pardew out, Ashley out. I mean, every time they get a manager, it seems it's not good enough, really.
Well, I mean, you can look at 2 situations there over the weekend. Pardew out, so he went. Now Crystal Palace doing very well, thank you, under his tutelage. Yeah. And also, it's Spurs. What an irony over the weekend that Tim Sherwood takes the team.
Your mate Steve.
My mate Steve takes his new team, who were battling for against relegation when he first got there, but who won't get relegated now, we don't think, goes to White Hart Lane and wins 1-0. I mean, that was an astonishing turnaround. And guess what? A mate of mine, who is big-time Charlie at Spurs, told me it was the first game that Mr. Levy's missed at home this season.
Is that right?
Is that well? That's what he said. That's the allegation. Right. I don't know, Mr.
We don't identify this mole of yours.
No.
It's not the same person that I know.
No, it's not that. Not the gentleman who is free with the hospitality. Yeah. Or should I not say free? Is extremely
generous,
friendly with the hospitality. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah. No, it's not that, but I mean, that to me says absolutely everything. Because Levy couldn't even, I imagine, bear the spectacle of this man who he'd sat coming back and taking the points, and then what would the crowd say about that?
Particularly given what he was saying before the game about porky pies being told and all this kind of stuff, that things were not being said to be, exactly as they should have been. It was all very strange behaviour. But a great win for your mate Steve, after all.
Very odd indeed.
Did you give him a call and congratulate him?
No, it's my mate Tim. It's not Steve. I never called him Steve.
You
put that rumour around. Now it's stuck, and I'm finding that a bit tiresome, quite frankly. Yes.
Now, we've got lots to do coming up. Don't forget, we do... before I do anything else, actually, there has been a problem with the podcast. From last night, a lot of people were unable to download it,
why
including
was that?
Myself. Well, there was some kind of issue on iTunes. I don't know what it was.
Why couldn't you get all this right before the weekend started?
Well, it was working fine on Friday and Saturday and all through Sunday.
Why didn't you keep an eye on it then? That's your problem. You don't have mass application.
Well, what's it got to do with me?
You see, deflected so easily from the job.
How is it my fault?
I regard the job as a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week
well, that's very generous of you.
Mission. I'm very rarely off the case, and yet you float off down to your blinking hut in the middle of your field, down in in Sussex at the weekends. And as far as you're concerned,
spent a weekend drilling for oil. Actually,
didn't
find anything.
The job at hand is a million miles away.
Well, actually, you'd be pleased to know. You'd be delighted to know that the situation has now been rectified. And if anybody wishes to download the podcast, there's a lot of people were complaining that they had travel plans tomorrow in the morning, that they were flying on planes and things, and they were like, "Please get it fixed." It is now fixed, so you can now download all the podcasts. So excellent. I dare say you'll now be congratulating me on getting it fixed.
No, I will be berating you for taking so long to get it fixed. The other good news is that our master technician has loaded up some more of the live coverage of Birmingham when we were there recently, the Birmingham Repertory, because very soon we'll be hitting the stage again. Hoofers, they call people on stages, haven't they?
Hey?
Hoofers.
Hoofers?
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're the thespian. I'm not. I'm not
they
familiar
call
with
them hoofers. Like, King Hoofer was always...
What are you talking about?
That guy used to dance with Ginger Rogers. Fred Astaire.
Fred Astaire?
Yeah, Fred Astaire.
Well, isn't that dancers, then? More than actual...
No, they're hoofers. They're hoofers.
Really?
And the other guy was Gene Kelly. He was a great hoofer. In fact, there was a big debate going on, and has been ever since, over the years, about who was the better dancer, Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire.
We're not going to have that debate on here,
I think it was Gene Kelly.
Do you?
Personally.
Really? Why?
I just liked his style better. I thought he was more...
You're not going to start doing tap dancing while you're on the stage.
I'm not.
You do enough of that on here.
No, but I thought he was more agile. Now, listen, the other thing is...
You said the time, by the way.
Yeah, don't worry about the time.
Where's the time?
We're going in a sec, but I just need to tell you something before we do.
Go on.
What I'm going to talk to you about next is Viv Nicholson.
Oh, yeah.
Now, who was Viv Nicholson?
Viv Nicholson?
Yeah.
Oh, was that not the woman who won the pools?
Yeah, that's right.
The spend woman?
Yeah, she's died.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I thought she died ages ago.
No. She died yesterday.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, which is very sad because, her life went a bit sort of crazy after the pools money ran out.
Yeah.
But I have a fascinating insight into the way that woman reshaped the whole of the British economy for the last 50 years.
Oh, OK. No doubt it will be fascinating.
Yeah.
It's coming up next with Mike Parry and Mike Graham on the two mics on Extra Time.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
We'll be issuing a new one around about 7 or 8 hours from now, all being well, and I'll try and make sure that there isn't any more problems with them. But Mr. Parry, you want to talk about money, you want to talk about Viv, what's her name?
Well, Viv Nicholson is a really charismatic figure. She was the first celebrity winner of the pools in this country. Yeah. She won 152 grand.
Well, she wasn't a celebrity until she won it, though, was she?
Well, yeah, but she was the first one who's made a celebrity because it was a change in the rules of the pools companies. After the war and the austerity that followed the war, they changed the rules to allow them to pay out much bigger jackpots, and she was the first one who got a big one, 152. Equivalent today, £3.5 million.
Is that right?
Yeah, so that's not bad, is it?
It's not bad
Now,
mind you, it pales into insignificance, doesn't it, when you look at people winning like 56 million and all that kind of thing.
157 million, 153 million in the Euro lotteries now and all that kind of stuff. Nevertheless, in those days, earn hard of money. You've got to remember that most people in those days used to bath in a tin bath in front of the fire. They used to have an outside loo.
We don't want you giving away any more childhood secrets.
No.
I didn't bath in a tin bath in front of the fire.
Yeah, most people did.
Well,
they used an outside loo shared by 6 families.
How cool is that?
They had a washing line which was strung between the front of their house and the other 2 up, 2 down house opposite in a street where grubby children in filthy clothes and matted hair used to play in the streets and all this kind of stuff. So to win 153,000, equivalent to £3.5 million today, was pretty good.
It was, yeah. Now, what did she spend it all on, for people who don't remember the story?
Well, the thing is, she went bankrupt within 3 years. Yeah. She spent it all on big houses, big cars.
But for herself, or did she end up spreading it all around to members of her family?
Quite a bit to herself. Yeah. She lent a lot to her friends, which never paid her back. Her husband started a load of businesses, but unfortunately, he then died in a car crash on the A1 in a Jaguar he'd bought with the money. Right. And then tax bills started rolling in for these sort of companies that never happened and all that kind of stuff, Yeah. And she's just sort of went bust and all that. But there is, apart from the nostalgia of it all, because all this happened in 1963, 61.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the obituary.
Yeah,
now,
61. The point of my story, which not many people know, is that during my study of economics as a student,
When did you study economics, exactly?
I studied economics at A-level, where I got an A-level pass.
Oh, how many A-levels did you get?
I got 4.
4?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Because a lot of people have been asking me to press you on your 14 O-levels.
Well, I gave you them all.
You did? I know you did.
I gave them all, yeah.
You were going to bring the certificates in, weren't you?
Well, I can't find them. I don't know where they are. But I mean...
Maybe in a locked room.
No. I don't have a locked room. That's another myth that you've started. People are now saying it's a bondage room. Well, I don't even know what bondage is.
No, I don't think it's that at all.
No, but...
Shocking allegation, that.
Yeah. Anyway, and 4 O-levels. So I studied economics at A-level at King's School, Chester. And then when I went to the University of the Trent... economics was also one of my disciplines.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
Well, as part of the urban planning.
Yes, that's urban estate management. Urban estate management. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, what one of the lecturers told me during the course of my economic study was, he said, a lady called Viv Nicholson was responsible for the economic boom that eclipsed us during the 60s.
Really?
Because what happened was, after the war, when people came back from the war, when people were living in austerity, there was nothing to spend your money on.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at a picture in this obit, which I'm seeing on my iPad here.
Yeah.
Newspapers in the picture of her carrying loads and loads of presents.
That's right.
This is, you'll love this. This is amazing.
Go on.
Newspapers in 1961 reported on Mrs. Nicholson's extravagant 3-hour spending spree after her win. Do you know how much she spent?
That's Harrods, yeah, go on.
130 quid.
130 quid, yeah.
Amazing,
fantastic.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely amazing.
You're going to get 2 bottles of champagne for that now.
Well, that's exactly right. She bought Cadillacs and all sorts of things. But what happened was, when she made that famous statement, when she was asked, what are you going to do now? She said, I'm going to spend.
Right.
That was the headline all around the world, because it was one of the biggest lottery wins in the world at the time. And what happened was, all these people who'd been used to austerity for the 16 years after the end of the Second World War, who had a few bob in savings in the national... in the post office used to put money in those days. What was it called?
Was it National Savings?
National Savings or something like that. They all said, do you know what? She looked so happy spending money, we're going to spend ours.
But this comes back, does this not come back to something we were going to talk about last week but didn't get around to, which is this new pension law, which says that if you wish to, you can take all your money out at the same time and spend it all at once instead of actually, worrying about waiting to have a pension.
That's a bit more complicated. I've been into that in great detail. I'll tell you about it in a second.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, can you believe that this mill worker lady from, Bradford, Yorkshire, somewhere in Yorkshire, Leeds.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Castleford, West Yorkshire. West Yorkshire.
Licorice factory worker.
Licorice factory worker, that's right. She used to make Pontefract cakes. She used to put the stamp on the Pontefract cakes, okay? That was her job, all day long. These round bits of licorice would come along on the production line, and she had a handheld stamp just to stamp them with Pontefract cake. Yeah. That's a really interesting job.
Well, I mean, there were worse jobs, I suppose. Her husband was a miner.
I can't think of a worse
her
job.
husband was down a pit.
Well, at least that's a bit more interesting. At least you're always looking around for a bit of a rockfall or something to keep you interested.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that's really what you're looking for.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, you've got to have your wits about you. Yeah. Whereas actually stamping Pontefract cakes with the same...
Well, you could do yourself an injury with that if you weren't paying attention.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I wonder if you got all 3 Pontefract cakes. I wonder if she had black teeth because she ate all the Pontefract cakes.
She'd probably be sick of
Pontefract cakes are pure licorice, of course. Anyway,
what is pure licorice?
Pure licorice.
Yeah, how do they make that?
It's root. It's calico. Isn't it?
It's like a vegetable.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's an extract, isn't it? I mean, you have to manufacture the licorice.
Obviously,
I mean, you can't just like open a plant and there it is.
Well, mostly you can.
Really?
Mostly you can, and then you squash it up, put a bit of water in, boil it up, and
there you go.
And that's it. Yeah, that's it. Basically, yeah. Why do you think that's funny?
Well, because everything to you is just boil it.
Well, you do.
There you are.
Do. And
just boil it. And
anyway, she says spend. Suddenly, the nation goes rushing off to the post office to empty all their post office accounts. They start spending. All of a sudden, Harold Wilson, the Prime Minister, suddenly sees we've got an economic boom on our hands. Yeah. The economists trace it back to this woman saying spend.
Yeah.
The licorice factory worker from Castleford in West Yorks, and we suddenly go through boom years in the 60s.
And the good thing about it, presumably, is that this is money that people actually had, as opposed to spending on a credit card that you don't have.
Quite right. There were no credit cards in those days. Yeah. And the thing is, it saved the Harold Wilson government because the policies that they were pursuing were dampening the economy. Yeah. They wanted more nationalisation. They wanted higher taxes. Do you know what tax rate was in those days?
Well, that was when they put it up to like 95%,
95%.
Yeah.
When the Beatles paid their first tax bill in 1963 on their revenues, they were paying 95% tax, and therefore wrote the hit song Taxman.
Yeah.
And you know what the lines in Taxman is?
19 for you. What is
it? One for me.
1 for me. 19
for you and 1 for me. Taxman! Yeah. And what was 19 and 1 referring to?
That was referring to the 95%, obviously.
No, it's referring to the number of shillings in a pound. There were 20 shillings in a pound, 19 for the taxman and 1 for the Beatles.
Well, that's not as much as 95%, is it?
It is, yeah, it is 95%.
Well, there you go. Well, that's what I said.
Yeah, but you didn't actually get the currency idea, which I knew about, because I was more factual about it. Right. So what I'm saying is...
You're really on a roll tonight, aren't you?
I am on a roll, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm in good shape, good form. You know, been working out all weekend.
Well rested.
Yeah, well rested. So, if you see my point, this woman triggered it because what was happening during the 60s was that high taxes and low consumer values and all that. You know, the economic policies of this country were sinking. She revived them all. Yeah. And guess who stopped the economic revival of this country?
I don't know who did.
Arabia. Because all of a sudden, the Middle East rulers realised that the West was taking oil out of their ground very, very cheaply and making themselves wealthy in the West, so they doubled the price of oil.
I suppose you would say, to be more specific.
I don't know if OPEC were going in those days. I think OPEC might have been formed, actually, to suddenly get together.
Specifically to make sure that all the oil-producing nations of the Middle East actually make sure that they didn't undercut each other.
That's right. That's absolutely right, yeah. And so that is the history of the economy during the 60s, triggered by Viv Nicholson.
Well, then
you didn't know that. I've told you all that. In fact, our listeners didn't know that, and I've told them.
Well, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, yes.
I wonder if you've got any more fascinating insight into the economy, because what I would have thought would now be, the follow-on from that would be that you should basically advise all the pensioners to now spend all their money on the basis that would revive the economy as well, because that's all money they've got. Well, they wouldn't have to borrow it.
That may well happen, but I tell you what, it's going to be a hell of a job for them to get the money out.
Right.
I have spoken to a number of pension experts over the last 10 days. Right. Well, since I knew this was coming up, I like to be prepared.
Of course.
And, if you have loads of money... By the way, I don't know why people ever had pensions, and I'm not trying to influence people what they do with their money, but to my mind, you have a pension pot of like £3 million, which some people...
Well, not very many people have one that big.
Some people in these big jobs have got it. I don't know what they want it for, because you only get 5% of it as an income per year. So,
Well, not anymore. Now you can have it all at once.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the pensions industry is far too small to cope with the number of people who want to take their money out. It's going to be years before some people get their money out.
Yeah.
Really, the paperwork is going to be horrendous, and the backlog is going to be horrendous.
So you're not taking all yours out then?
I'm not taking all mine out, no. And also, you wait till the tax bills hit you. You take all that out now, you're going to be on nearly a 50% tax bill because the sums are so large.
Yeah. Wouldn't they take the tax off you first, though?
No, you can take 25% of it tax-free.
That's what. I know that. But wouldn't they, if you took, say, 100% of it, wouldn't they tax you at source and then just give it to you net?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But you'll lose 50% of it.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get a tax bill then, would you?
Well, it doesn't matter. Something that you thought was a cash asset, or a paper asset of say £1 million is now only a cash asset of £500,000. That's bad business.
I think a lot of people would be astonished to know that they had £1 million of a pension. I'm sure they haven't got that. But funnily enough, we're going to talk about Alan Pardew and how much he was paid in a moment. But this is Talk Sports Extra Time. We are the Two Bikes. Loads more coming up
on digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. We are the Two Mikes. Loads more to come. And, of course, there is a podcast coming out a little bit later on, which hopefully will be unencumbered with any problems. That'll be in about 6 or 7 hours' time from now. A couple of tweets for you, Mr. Parry. Bill says this. Porky's eulogy on the Pools winning Licorice Woman just proves that it takes all sorts. Boom, boom.
Hey, I love it. Well done. I like it. Thank you.
And Ian has sent in a picture, a cover of the album by the Smiths. Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. And that's Viv Nicholson appearing on that there. You know the Smiths, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Morrissey and all that. By the way, I may mention this a bit later on, but there was a story running around today, which I thought I'd mention to you, that they're now starting up, the sale of vinyl records has come back to such an extent that they've now decided to start a chart of the top 20 vinyl sales.
And you know who's in it?
Yeah, well, Noel Gallagher seems to be winning it, I think.
Well, Noel Gallagher's got 2 in it, but you know who else has got a hit in it? Lulu with Shout.
Oh, really?
A record she made when she was 16.
Wow.
She's now over 60.
So they're still selling it then? Or have they reissued it?
No, they must have reissued it or something. I don't know, because I had a look at the chart and I couldn't quite understand it. I couldn't understand. David Bowie is head of the LP chart, Life on Mars.
Life on Mars, okay.
That seems to have been the biggest selling, but I don't understand where the figures have come from.
Is it Life on Mars a single?
Life on Mars might have been a single. I mean, for instance, Abbey Road is number 10 in the chart, the vinyl chart. Yeah. But I don't know if that's... I think that's since...
It must be current, mustn't it?
Well, it is current, and it's based on this. At the height of vinyl sales in about 79 or something, 20 million vinyl records a year were sold.
Yeah.
Today it's 1.2 million.
In this country? Or,
in this country, in this country.
Yeah.
Today it's 1.2 million.
Right.
And I think they're now... putting charts together on what's being sold in vinyl and what's available.
Yeah, that's what I think is the case.
And Lulu and Shout, for some unknown reason, is available.
We may have to look further into it. But certainly High Flying Birds, which is Noel Gallagher's band now, he's on his own, is the one that seems to be topping it. So,
also, his brother had, what was his band's name?
BDI.
Yeah, that's in it as well.
Is it?
That's in it somewhere. I've got the chart here. We'll have a look. I'll have a look at that later.
We will have a look at it later. But you want to talk about Raheem Sterling now, don't you?
I do in a sec. What did you do with all your vinyl records?
I've still got loads of them.
Well, do you know what
I pared it down to about 100. I've got about 100 left. And I mean, I haven't moved for a while, but every time I move, it was the one thing that I would always swear by I wouldn't move again with, because they're so heavy.
I know. Well, I threw all mine out when I moved one time. Well, what happened was I went back to America to join you in the 90s, right? Yeah. And I decided to rent the
house. I wasn't there. I'd already come back here.
That's right. I decided to rent the house out. So I decided I'd clear the house of things that, didn't need to be there for somebody.
You put them in a loft or something?
Well, you can't really. You can't. If there's people in the house, the loft is theirs as well. Yeah. So, in fact, I made them. That's how I lost my football programmes. I put those in the loft of a house, forgot about them, and
they got eaten by rats or something.
No. They just disappeared.
The people who have disappeared.
The people who came in cleared out the loft and threw them out. They told me. They said, all these packages wrapped up in. No, honestly,
that's a bit harsh.
I know, wrapped up in.
Surely they had no business doing that.
No, that was a house I sold. It wasn't a house I was renting out.
You left them in there by mistake.
I left them there by mistake. Right. Do you know what I did? I went up and cleared the loft in the dark without putting the light on. The bulb had gone. I didn't take a torch, and I thought I'd got everything. But I didn't realise I'd wrapped all my programmes going back 60 years.
Would they have been worth something, do you think?
Oh, the sentimental value to me, enormous. Because,
no, but I mean, just financial.
Well, probably
value.
I'd never have sold them. You keep them for life. But I mean, for instance, when my dad took me to Chester when I was about 6 or 7, in those days, you had a little score thing on the back, A, B, C, D, for the other results. My dad had filled in the results and filled in, the changes in the team and all that. Really invaluable stuff. But anyway, I lost them, so that's all right. But anyway, what I was saying is, I for some unknown reason, I had a fit of sort of anger and resentment about life in general.
Not like you.
No, that's
very
right,
unusual.
Yeah. So
you have one of those about 2 hours every couple of hours, don't you?
That's a bit harsh. So I decided I didn't need it anymore, and I threw them all out, and I realised now what works of art are. I threw out Abbey Road.
Did you?
I threw out the Beatles collection.
Although Abbey Road was not a particularly lavish album, is it? I mean, all you've got is a single sleeve.
No, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's nice, but it's just a single sleeve album. I mean, I've got the most sort of crazy one I've got is a Santana triple album, right, which was recorded live,
right,
and it's 3 LPs, and it folds out into about 25,000 different pieces, and it's got this massive kind of book that came with it as well. Amazing.
Let It Be was like that. Let It Be came with a huge book. I've still got the book because I remember to rescue that. So, what were we talking about? I forgot.
We were going to talk about the red balloons. And,
the Red Balloons,
Sterling,
Now, listen.
Seems to have found himself for the second time in about as many days in the newspapers for smoking something or putting something in his mouth.
Now, the point is, I saw his goal against Newcastle before I became aware of this story.
Right.
And he didn't look to me like a boy affected by inhaling laughing gas he was on the pitch tonight.
Great goal. Although pretty awful defending by Newcastle, you have to say.
He was. However, if you read about the medical implications of what he's done, we should say right from the start, we're not making any jokes about this. It is not funny. Now, this appears on the front of the Sun, but it also appears on the back of respectable newspapers.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Sun isn't respectable, but some would say the heavies. Like, for instance, the Independent does it very well.
Yeah.
Liverpool launch inquiry into Sterling laughing gas video. Raheem Sterling will face an internal investigation by Liverpool after a video emerged of him seeming to take nitrous oxide, a legal high, which has potentially fatal side effects.
Yeah, so it's known as hippie crack, this stuff.
It is.
And, I mean, the trouble is, I suppose, every newspaper's covering it, every newspaper's saying that's what he appears to be doing. I suppose we should say that we don't know what he's doing. It looks like he's imbibing something from a balloon. Who knows what it is,
There's a picture of him taken from the video of him looking fanatically happy, giggling, smiling, laughing, the sort of way somebody looks when they're on some sort of a high. It might be the high of scoring a goal, might be the high of hearing that your girlfriend's, suddenly become pregnant or something. Yeah. We don't know why, but he's got a very, very happy smile on his face.
Right. Well, they've got a drug abuse charity yesterday blasting them, because we've had this problem before with these legal highs,
of course,
which are not, obviously because of the name of them, they're not illegal. However, they can be just as dangerous as any number of illegal drugs, right?
Yeah. It says it is very, very dangerous in association with alcohol in particular, and it can be fatal.
And it was only a few days ago that he was photographed also smoking from a shisha pipe, right? Which, I mean, it seems to me that either somebody's got it in for him or he's hanging around with the wrong kind of people.
But a shisha pipe is only like fruity tobacco.
It is.
I can't see the problem
But I saw one story that suggested that smoking, continually from one of them is like smoking 300 cigarettes in a row.
Is it really?
I mean, I don't know if that's true.
Well, we were out in Qatar when England played out there, and I was with Andy Townsend, actually.
Right.
And it was
Did you have a bit of the shisha then?
No, but it was the very weirdest thing, because you go out down into the Old Town, right, and you're sitting there, and you're in an Italian restaurant in the Old Town. Yeah. There's no alcohol, because
Have they got an Old Town in Qatar, then?
Yeah, they have,
Because remember I told you they haven't got one in Dubai.
Well, they've built an old town, if you see what I mean.
So it's not an old town, then?
Well, no, it's like a film set,
Well, they've built an old town.
Yeah, they've built an old town.
How's it an old town, then?
Well, it looks old. And
it's like going to Disney World.
Well, I think that's been a bit unfair. It might be old. It looks old, but it looks a bit too new to be old.
Right.
You see what I mean?
No, not really.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking
confused.
about. Yeah, but
there was nothing there. Was there?
There's one street.
No, but I mean, there was nothing there 50 years ago.
No, it wasn't. No.
So I mean, it's not
really.
like you're walking down, some town in the Cotswolds.
But anyway, this Italian restaurant in Qatar, and then I'm thinking I need a couple lots of Pinot because this is not a proper meal.
Right.
But then instead of Pinot and all that, it's all these guys walking them down, running around with these what look like vacuum cleaners.
Oh, yeah.
They're that big, And they come to your table. Do you want a bit of?
They're quite popular in some restaurants in London.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. Marylebone Road and all around there. And do you know the people who use the most were women?
Oh yeah.
Say thank you. And they give you obviously your own exclusive.
Oh, you weren't sharing.
No, you're exclusive like a mouthpiece.
Yeah,
like that. You stick it in a shisha pipe and all
right.
that. But I mean, I didn't see people suddenly going, "Hey, man, yeah."
Well, it's not dope they're smoking. That's illegal.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I don't know what it is.
Well, it is generally. It's either alcohol, not alcohol.
Fruity tobacco.
It's either fruity tobacco, or in some cases, like these vapes, it's a sort of it's a sort of a substance which is liquid. Actually, you just smoke the liquid.
But anyway, we would recommend to all our listeners: do not get on the laughing gas. Do not get on the nitrous oxide.
Yeah,
I think.
Right.
It's not good for you. It's very, very dangerous. Stay off it.
But it does seem to be something which a lot of young men, particularly, will get themselves involved in. I mean, Carl Walker was pictured, or I think was supposedly involved in having some of it at a nightclub, wasn't he, a few years ago?
When I was a teenager, I remember going to one party and some bloke started talking like Donald Duck.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the same thing?
No, that's helium.
Oh, that's helium, is it?
That's helium.
Well,
I think you do the same. I mean, you blow up a balloon.
Myself.
You blow up a balloon. Yeah, well, you wouldn't really want to.
No, I wouldn't want to. Why would I want to? I don't want to destroy my voice. My voice is my fortune. My voice is the recognisable pattern of me as a human being to millions of people out there. Why would I want to destroy that?
Also, why would you want to make yourself talk any faster or within a higher octave?
It's like sticking your face into a fire. Why mess around with the features you have? That's how I feel about my voice.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Very well said. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. We are the two Mikes. Lots more coming up.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can. Talk.
But I mean, to be able to play a vinyl record, you've got to have a record player.
Well, you have, yeah.
So it means you've got to go out and buy another.
But there's plenty of those. There's plenty of those around. You can actually buy one as well that feeds through your computer system as well, and it means that you can actually then record all of the vinyl onto your your hard drive if you wish.
I don't know why people would bother with vinyl these days. To be honest,
well, some people prefer the sound of it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
they say it's richer.
Oh, okay. Well, I can accept that. But I mean, for instance, a mate of mine has got a system where he's installed a jukebox into his house, and he can have the choice of 1 million records on that jukebox.
Really?
Because it all comes to him via, a satellite link or something like that. You know what I mean?
So it's just stored somewhere in a cloud.
Yeah, well, it's the same sort of thing you get in a pub.
Yeah.
You go to a pub jukebox and on the wall it says, pick any record. It's the same as that. They haven't got them all stored in that machine. They come electronically to you.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, well, interesting times. I mean, it might be Spotify or something like that. But did I ever tell you about the story when I was in New York in the 80s, and this guy that I knew, English guy, married an American guy, was a friend of, American girl, I should say, friend of my sister's, and he bought this big house up in Connecticut. Right. He was one of these kind of big traders in Wall Street. Built this house, a beautiful house. And he very proudly, when I went up there to have lunch one Sunday, showed me around the house, and in every single room he could program different music. And he thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. To which I said, well, you can only be in one room at a time though, can't you? What's the point of that? And he kind of looked at me completely dumbfounded as to why I would ask such a question.
What do you mean, different sort of music in every room?
He basically had a little console. As you went in, there was lights there,
right?
And next to it was another kind of panel made of metal.
Yeah.
And basically, it was like I guess it was in those days a CD player of some kind.
Right.
And it meant that you could play any song that he had in that particular room, but it wouldn't go into any other room in the house.
Well,
I mean, he'd spent a fortune on it. He spent about $50,000 or something on a stereo system.
So hang on. So if he had
if you were in
all
the kitchen,
the Rolling Stones CDs in the parlour, then you couldn't get those in the lounge.
No, you could. You could get access to any music that he had somehow by pressing, play. But you could select any song that you wanted that he had. I don't know how it worked. But basically, you could go from the kitchen to the living room, upstairs to all the different bedrooms, and you could have different music playing. And he actually showed me he had different music playing in every room.
How weird.
And I thought, That's a bit...
why do you want to do that?
Yeah.
I could see why you'd have a different telly in every room, like I've got, because you want to keep up with all the programmes.
Yeah.
But music, can't get it.
Yeah.
Listen...
Anyway, he ended up losing his job and he had to sell the house.
Oh, did he?
So,
right.
that was the 80s for you.
See, that's what happens to people who take their eye off the ball.
And then what happens is you then have a massive kind of, what you might call sort of like a milestone around your neck, a millstone around your neck, because you have to say to people, well, I've got to add another 50 grand on the sale of the house because of this music system.
That's right, yeah.
Incredible.
Happens all the time, underground car parks and all that kind of stuff. Now, the reason we were playing...
Parks?
Sorry?
Underground car parks?
Yeah, underground car parks.
What's that got to do with
music?
That's
what all these people are doing, isn't it, these days?
Who?
All these people who buy these houses, which are like townhouses, and then bury downfall to
I see what you mean,
underground car parks and things.
Well, that's quite handy.
Now then, the reason we played Bicycle there, that great Queen hit...
Yes.
28% of cyclists have had their bikes stolen, and 1 in 7 has been a victim of theft in the past 2 years.
Well, you had your bike stolen, haven't you?
I had my bike stolen. I didn't bother getting another one.
Yeah.
Because, I tell you what, the cops told me the likelihood of getting your bike stolen again is actually quite high.
They'll just come back and look for the new one.
Exactly. They know where it was.
You haven't got it insured, really, for that, have you?
I didn't have it insured anyway in the first place, and I've got around to insuring it. Didn't have it that long.
Right.
And, it's a £400 bike got nicked. And now there's another one. It says here, this is... what's it? Oh, it's a company called Protect Your Bubble has done this survey. Bikes are most likely to be stolen from back gardens, where 16% of bikes go, front gardens, garages, garden sheds, outside shops, and from work. Almost 2/3 of bikes were locked up, but 50% of cyclists use only one bike lock, and only 9% use locks as sold secure gold
I'll tell you something
standard.
that started to creep in as well, something that started to happen. I don't know if you've noticed this in your luxurious block of flats in either of your locations, but in my place in London, a lot of people have started to bring their bike inside the building now. And so they'll take the wheel off and then put it either on the landing or put it outside their particular front door, which is very irritating.
I've had to, on 2 buildings with which I'm associated, I've had to move with the residents' committee to stop this happening.
Really?
Because it makes the carpets dirty and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, which idiot buys a 5th, 6th floor flat and a bike and then puts it out on the balcony, which is a hideous
it's an eyesore, isn't it?
Hideous
Unlike your fine, what do you call it, roof garden.
Yes, that's right.
That's not an eyesore at all,
No,
is
it's
it?
not. You can't see it from the ground.
Don't you?
No. So you can only see it if you're flying over it in a helicopter.
Right.
Which
How's
happens
it
all the
looking
time.
at the moment, by the way?
It is now being done next week, and the scaffolding's going up over the weekend.
So more scaffolding?
Yeah, it's going to be done.
Oh, so everybody's agreed now? There's not going to be a final kind of, lawsuit thrown down at the final second?
No. I have prevailed, as I do in these situations.
So if anybody lives beneath you, they should move away for a couple of weeks.
No, not at all. Not at all. It'll be done efficiently and properly in about 3 or 4 days.
Right, okay.
There'll be no problem at all. But I'm not giving any of the workmen a cup of tea or anything like that. I don't believe in that.
No, that's not
They don't
very
get
nice
tea when they come and work for me. They work. And
well, you won't be there, will you?
Well,
will you be their supervisor?
No, not most of the time I won't. I refuse to have anything to do with it. They're not coming in my house. They're doing it all from the outside.
They've got another cherry picker coming.
They've got a cherry picker, they've got pulleys and scaffolding, and they must get on with it and do it. Now, getting back to bikes, right? So this is a situation. If you've got a bike, you've got a 1 in 4 chance of it getting nicked, which is disgraceful. But, I mean, then again, bikes are like locusts in our society at the moment.
There's more and more of them, that's true.
They're all over the place. But what I was going to say was, I read another ridiculous survey, because I have to keep my eye on property surveys to know what the value of my property portfolio is, and whether or not I'm, sinking into poverty or heading towards a new boat. Right. That's what you need to know when you've got a lot of property.
A new boat? What, you mean like the dinghy you've already got? You're thinking of upgrading it?
It's not. It's
a
rib.
A dinghy.
It's a rib.
It's a dinghy.
It's a rib. Rigid inflatable boat. They're very well known
to... It's a dinghy.
They're very well known to the seafaring
community. Does it have
community.
a kitchen? Or, as we call it, a galley?
No.
Well, then it's not a proper boat, is it?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Does it have any, dwelling area?
What do you call a wooden vessel with 3 plank-like seats in it? Plank-like seats.
3 planks sitting on them.
And 3 pairs of rowlocks with ours.
What are you talking about?
Well, it's a rowing boat.
Yeah, it's a rowing boat.
It's not called a dinghy. It's called a rowing boat.
Yeah, but a dinghy is a dirigible. That's what it's short for.
No.
It is.
No.
A dinghy is a dirigible. That's what dinghy is short for.
Mine's got a motor on the back, goes very fast, and it whizzes through the water, and we go and look at seals, which are playing around on the shore.
Right.
Now then, what I was going to say is...
What were you going to say?
I read a ridiculous survey about property, which says, I don't know, are there any other cities in Britain which have these ridiculous, what we call Boris bikes in London?
Well, I don't know if there are, actually, in other parts of the country.
Manchester?
I mean, certainly they've got them in New York. And I've seen them there.
Paris.
And I think they've got them in Paris. I don't know if there's any other cities in this
Well, let me tell for the benefit,
Reading may have.
For the benefit of millions of listeners who don't have to live in London, what we have in this city is we have a system where all these bikes are like stood up in bike racks, okay? And you go along, put your money in, you take one for 2 or 3 hours and you put it back. Except it's not money these days. It's all done on cards, isn't it? And you have to be a member of the scheme and all that kind of stuff.
The thing I always find surprising is when you read stories about somebody who decided to take a Boris bike for the first time, and you know that, I don't know how you could do that unless you could just swipe a credit card or pay maybe with one of those contactless.
I don't know why they're just not all nicked by people in lorries and that kind of stuff. But the point is, you cycle around all day and then you can leave it at any other Boris bike station.
Yeah.
Right, now...
I'm told that I'm in Liverpool as well, by the way.
Oh, I'm in Liverpool today? OK, great. I've never seen them in Liverpool, and I go there quite a lot to watch football. But anyway, I'm not going to argue. The point of the survey I read was, it said, and this must have been written by some pro-environmental nutter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The presence of a Boris bike station within 500 yards of your house puts another 15% on the value of your house.
Well, I guess that would be true.
Oh, rubbish.
Are you
honestly telling me that some guy who works in the city or something says, wonderful, and come to my house every morning, walk 450 yards, and then swipe my card and get on a Boris bike to get to work?
Well, no, because
that's rubbish.
No, because it would actually make a difference, I think, because before I got my car, the second car, which I now use to drive backwards and forwards into work, when I was on the tube and stuff like that, certainly in the summertime, there's a Boris bike stand right outside TalkSport, right up on the main street there.
Yeah.
Now, if I could have dropped my bike anywhere within a couple of hundred yards of where I live, I would have occasionally taken a bike home because it's pretty flat. Yeah, I would. Why not?
You wouldn't get on a bike.
I would, of course I would.
Nonsense.
And it would have been good for me.
You can't even ride a bike.
Get a bit of exercise. I can't even ride a bike.
You can't ride a bike. And anyway, with the greatest respect, those bikes are not built for people of your size.
Well, the only time you have ever seen me on any kind of bike
frame
is when we did that race. Do you remember in Birmingham? We went and did
the
outside broadcast.
On these mini motorbikes.
The mini motorbikes, when you disgracefully shoved me off mine into the side because you were so keen on winning that you kind of absolutely shoved me off it. But it was about your size. It was like a kid's bike we were riding on. But I mean, the reason why I don't take a Boris bike home or wouldn't do it when I didn't have a car.
You couldn't get that far.
Well, I could. It's very flat.
You haven't got the energy to get there, Mike.
It's about 2 miles, right?
You smoke so many cigarettes.
No.
I mean, do you know
You'd
what you're saying?
You'd be amazed at how much energy I've got.
If you got on one of those static bikes, like sort of things they have in,
I wouldn't go on one of those.
in gyms,
Why would I do that?
in health spas.
I wouldn't bother.
You couldn't cycle more than half a mile before you'd be gasping for breath.
That's not true.
It is true.
Maybe one day we should have a bike race, but not around London. We'll go to a velodrome, shall we? We'll go to a velodrome.
Go to a velodrome. I never understood that, by the way.
Right.
With the cycling and the Olympics and all that. And they're all paddling around like this.
Pedaling,
that's right.
Paddling's the sailing.
That's right, it is, Then all of a sudden, somebody goes, hey, or shouts or something. And one of what are you laughing at?
Well, that's the famous Sir Chris Hoy. Sir Chris Hay.
Or whatever. and all of a sudden, one of them breaks off and shoots up the sort of the sloping road, so to speak.
Are you talking about like when they have a relay and they're kind of passing a baton to each other?
No, it's not even a relay. It's like they're driving in team formation, cycling in team formation, and then apparently they're all pacemakers for the one star in the middle. Yeah. And all of a sudden, whoosh, she's away. You know what I mean?
You're not thinking about the Tour de France?
No. Tour de France take place on mountains. I'm talking about the velodrome here.
Is this the one where they kind of throw each other round? And they kind of grab each other and give each other a bit of a... That's the team pursuit, I think it's called. Team
pursuit,
but that's done against the clock.
Hey?
That's done against the clock, isn't it?
Yes, it is done against the clock, that's right. But I think only one of them can win, for the team. You've got to take one for the team, so to speak.
My point about the Boris bikes is if, for example, somewhere 200 yards from my house there was a place that I could drop the bike off, then I would have probably taken one.
Yeah.
But because there isn't, I thought to myself, well, all I can do if I ride a bike down here is either chain it up, which means I have to then pay for having it for the whole day, or I just throw it in the river.
Do you know what? There's a very serious side to this.
I can tell you're not paying any attention.
I am paying attention.
I can see, because you completely glossed over that.
I didn't. I paid attention.
I just suggested that I would throw a bike in a river, and you had no reaction.
Well, because I do not want to dwell on what you are describing, because it really is vandalistic intent.
Not at all.
And we don't do that on this show because we're a family show.
Oh, yeah, listen, I've got a question here from Mars. It says, what happened to Porky's bicycle that you got for Christmas? You got a stationary bike for Christmas, didn't you?
Yeah, we haven't assembled it yet.
It still isn't assembled?
No.
It's nearly, like August bank holiday.
I know. It's a nightmare. It's
not even in the house yet, is it?
No, it's not. It's had to be removed to another location. But it's a bit of a nuisance. I'm not even sure that the flooring in any of my properties would take the weight of it. It's so huge.
Yeah.
It's like a wind tunnel, to be honest. Like it's in the sense that you start moving it like that, and the amount of energy it creates is just unbelievable. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it'll be good to get it eventually. Now
we've got to talk about Hillary Clinton shortly as well. Because, since we spoke about her last week, and you said that no woman you've ever met has had a better job than you, and I said, well, what about Hillary Clinton? You said, well, she doesn't have a job.
No,
but she does now, because she's now running for president.
But that's not a job.
And I told you she'd be doing that.
That's not a job. Well, we all knew she was going to be doing that.
You're telling me running for president is not a job?
No. It's not.
Are you sure?
No, I'm certain it's a pursuit. The only time it becomes a job, and I saw this happen. Do you remember Geraldine Ferraro?
I do.
Right, Geraldine Ferraro.
She ran with Walter Mondale, didn't she?
Yeah, well, for the benefit of our listeners, she ran with Walter Mondale, and that was in the 80s, right?
It was 1980, I think, wasn't it?
No.
Against Reagan?
No, 84, I think
was
it was. Yeah, I think it was his second term, 84, 85.
So Dukakis was 80, was it?
Dukakis was 80, that's right, yeah, the Greek guy,
yeah.
And anyway, I was on the trail with Walter Mondale, going around America and all that kind of stuff.
He was a boring guy, wasn't he?
Oh, terrible, shocking lawyer from Boston, I think. And anyway, when he finally got the nomination, at the
convention,
the convention, that's right, he then names Geraldine Ferraro.
Right.
And so, one minute, Geraldine Ferraro is an ordinary housewife and all that. The next minute, the Secret Service swoop on a house, and a stretch limo turns up, which is bulletproof and all that. And she's told from now on, you only ever travel. I mean, she hasn't been elected.
Yeah.
She's just been nominated.
As well, she's been nominated.
She's been nominated as the prospective Veep, which I always thought was a terrible word, the vice president. So I'm in Washington on this particular day, and I'm trying to get from A to B, and all of a sudden, everything's held up. And, as we got closer and closer in one of these taxis, where you can share them with somebody else, I said to I went the window down, said to one of the cops, I said, what's going on? They said, it's the new prospective Veep, Geraldine Ferraro.
Right.
And I said, what have you stopped all the traffic for? They said, that's it now. Right. Once you become the Veep and you're driving around in your cavalcade.
But the funny thing is, because I remember talking to George McGovern about this, who ran against Nixon and lost Watergate because of Watergate.
Yeah.
Because I went and did this series of interviews with guys that had tried and lost,
Yeah.
And
Nixon tried and lost, of course, against Kennedy.
Well, he did, yeah. But I mean, what he said was the most horrendous thing is that the moment the election's over, basically they all walk away.
That's right.
You come out of the place where they've been counting the votes, and there's no one there.
That's right. Your car's
the votes
gone.
have gone. The Secret Service have gone.
It's true.
Everybody's just moved on.
It's true. And when you get home, and all those guards used to stand in front of your door, and all, they're all gone. No, they've all completely gone. Yeah,
absolutely amazing. Now we'll talk some more.
It's sort of attitude people have towards you, and they say you approach, and they just flee.
Well, I don't need to turn it into personal insult.
You don't emanate any respect from anybody.
No, well, not from you anyway.
You emanate slobbishness.
We are the two Mikes. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He's Mike Parry. Of course, there will be a podcast coming out in a little while. We've got lots and lots of things to talk about as well. Here's one from Craig, who says, what happened to the cook-off? I thought you were doing with Porky. No, it doesn't make any sense, this. I thought you was doing, has Porky been reading his cooking books for tips? Cooking today, I suppose.
Well, I didn't do any cooking over the weekend. I had natural food.
Natural food?
Yeah.
Like what?
Pork pie.
Pork pie?
Yeah.
That's natural.
Yeah, it is natural.
Processed meat.
No, but I mean, I didn't have to cook it.
No, you didn't have to cook
slice it up, okay? Quiche.
It was a bit warm over the weekend for you, wasn't it? You're not a fan of the warm weather.
No, because I was down on the coast for a bit of it, and it's rather pleasant down there when the wind comes in off the Solent.
Yeah.
Rather pleasant indeed. Quiche, which doesn't need anything doing to it.
No, you can warm it up, though, if you like.
No, I hate warmed-up quiche.
What kind of quiche do you prefer?
It all shrivels up. I have the quiche Lorraine.
Quiche Lorraine, really?
Is it Lorraine?
That's the one with bacon in it,
Quiche Lorraine? Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Very nice.
Of quiche Lorraine, bit of pork pie, beetroot, tomatoes,
You
lean ham.
actually know how to live, don't you?
Yeah, lean ham. So, why are you laughing?
It's always lean ham.
Why are you laughing?
Because it's always lean ham. It's not just ham. Why can't you just get ham?
Because I like lean ham.
Why does it have to be lean ham?
Because I pay more for more expensive ham.
I see.
Because it's leaner.
Right, okay.
And if I pay more for expensive meat because it's leaner.
Right, okay.
So if I want a joint, I have a joint of fillet.
Right.
Which I pay £25 for. It lasts me a week.
Right. But if you're going to cook a joint, though, you shouldn't have to, buy such a fine, expensive cut of meat. Otherwise, it's too expensive.
No, and it's very, very nice. It's free of fat and it's very tender to the taste.
Very good.
Like it melts in your mouth type stuff, you know. But no, I'm into the natural food situation because the weather's getting warm and it's kind of summer, isn't it?
Very good. Somebody sent a picture in. Come on, you hatters is his Twitter account.
Luton
sent in a picture of a bike tent that you can buy. So apparently if you put that over your bike, nobody will steal it. But then surely they'd know that that's a bike tent.
Of course they would, and they'd just knife it knife the tent, that is, and then they take the bike.
Right.
There's no way in the world you can protect bikes anymore from thieves. And by the way, there's a bit of a serious side to the biking thing, and that is that, sadly, more people are being killed by the confusion on our roads between
particularly London. I mean, London is a very, very dangerous...
I think there's been 7 in the last 12 months.
Very, very dangerous place to cycle.
It's the confusion between the presence of a motor vehicle, most usually a high-sided lorry, and a bike, at junctions where the lorry turns and the bikes go under the lorry. It's terribly
Did you
tragic.
see that story at the weekend as well about the race in France, where they're now going after these guys because they tried to go across, well, they did go across a level crossing, despite the fact that there was a train coming, and they only missed it by, a few feet.
The barriers were down, and all these guys were ducking under the barriers, was coming down to get across. And then, then one of those TVRs, or whatever they're called, those very fast French trains, came rattling through. It was amazing.
TVR's a sports car, isn't it?
Yeah, it's TVR's a sports car.
TGV, I think.
TGV, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to say is that, in my view only, society is making too much provision to increase facilities for cyclists and make the roads safer for cyclists at the expense of the people who pay for the roads, which is the motorist.
Well, the problem is,
and the lorry driver, which is a huge part of our economy, moving stuff around the country. So what I'm saying is, it's a warped, imbalanced view. You've got to make less provision for the cyclist. The cyclist is a nuisance. Of course, they have the right to cycle, but not at the expense of slowing down the whole of the economy, which is what cyclists do.
The problem is, and cycling aficionados will say, well, of course, it's about the road tax is not about actually wheels on the road. It's about emissions, right? Because if you get a car that's not giving out any emissions...
rubbish. Was it about emissions when they invented the road tax in 1934?
It probably wasn't, no. But now they say it is. Like, for example, if you have a car which doesn't put out any emissions or is below the standards of emissions, then you don't pay any road tax, right?
Unbelievable.
But aside from that, I agree with you. The problem with a lot of cities like London is it's too small, it's too old, and it's different if you're in somewhere like Amsterdam where they can put all sorts of lovely, cycling routes around, and even in sort of some new towns where they can create cycling routes, that's fine. But it's very hard to do it through the centre of an old city like London.
I totally agree. The reason that Amsterdam has the bikeslanes is because Holland, of course, is a very flat country, and it's below sea level. That's why they have dikes to hold water.
And it's very flat
back
as well.
Well, that's what I'm about to say. Yeah. For that reason, it's very, very flat. So that means that right from the Middle Ages, when people started coming into towns...
I thought you were going to say when people started cycling.
No, I was about to say, right from the Middle Ages, when people started coming to towns, they would use things like bicycle-type machines, right, because you can get around on them without having to go up and down hills. So they were pushing around, bales of hay and all that on wheeled vehicles.
Horse and cart, more or less, wasn't it?
It was a bit of horse and cart about it, that's absolutely right. Yeah. But they did have hand-pulled and pushing wheeled machines because the land is so flat. Yeah. So, of course, when they all moved off the land into the city, they took their bikes with them. Yeah. Well, they didn't have bikes in those days, but the sort of thing I'm talking about is things with wheels on, you know what I mean? Yeah. And they developed, they cut the...
Wagons.
Well, what they used to do is, apparently, they then cut the wagon in half because the streets of Amsterdam were very narrow. Yeah. And that's how the first sort of bikes came along. Yeah.
Are you sure about this?
I'm certain about it.
You're not making this up?
No, I'm not making it up.
What, so they started cycling on unicycles, basically, that were half full with hay?
No, you don't understand. You don't understand.
With only one wheel in the middle?
If you take your wagon into town and you've been working in the fields all your life, you suddenly find that your wagon, which is about 4 foot wide, cannot get along the very narrow streets of Old Amsterdam. Right. Old Amsterdam, I sure am out where you understand.
Are you sure that's the same song?
That is Old Amsterdam.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is...
Unlike New Amsterdam.
Well, that's right,
Which is New York, of course.
Well, it used to be, didn't it, until it was called New York. Now, what I'm saying is that when you couldn't get your 4 foot wide cart, or what do you call them, truck?
Wagon,
from the country up the little alleyway in Amsterdam, what they literally did was they got a saw, because they had big saws to cut down trees.
That make all the things that were being carried in the wagon fall out, though?
Well, they took everything out first, didn't they, you fool? And they took the wagon back home, and then they sawed it in half right the way down the middle, which meant that there were 2 wagons, half the size, which could get up the alleyways.
Wouldn't stand up, though. They'd fall over,
No, they wouldn't, because the men would walk on the side of the wagon.
What were they carrying
that didn't have
wagons?
Wheels? Bales of hay, and that kind of stuff. But they just stacked them a bit higher.
Oh, okay.
But what they found out eventually...
implausible, this.
No, it's not implausible. What they found... This is where the technology of the bicycle actually originated. They found eventually that if you got up enough speed on your two-wheeled wagon, it would keep itself upright.
2 wheels on one side, though, surely?
No, it didn't, because what they did is then they were clever enough to build...
Well, they just built a new wagon.
That's what they did. That's what they did. They balanced it out by building another half on the other side of the wheels, if you see what I mean, above the wheels. You know what I mean?
Sounds very complicated.
No, it's not complicated.
I don't believe a word of it.
It's not complicated. It's easy.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you a funny story from the weekend, right? Here's one that I haven't told you about yet.
Oh, OK.
It was a birthday in the house, right? So I went and bought a handbag.
Who was this for?
For the mother of my children,
right?
I went and bought a handbag from a very reputable store, right? Presented it to her just before I left last night.
How can you have a choice in handbags? What do you know about handbags?
I know a lot about handbags. I bought a lot of handbags in my time.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
I know an awful lot about it. It's important to know about these things when you're buying presents for women, right?
Right.
Anyway, I bought this very nice handbag, leather, black, fairly plain, but a little bit smaller than one of the ones she uses at the moment. Right. I was very happy to get it. She said, I just need a smaller handbag because I keep losing everything in the big handbag.
Yes, that's good.
Anyway,
some of the size of women's handbags, by the way, absolutely astonish me.
I know.
They're like sacks.
I know, they are like sacks, yeah. And anyway, so, it's full of paper. Take all the paper out. Guess what happens at the bottom of the handbag, right?
No.
She discovers a key, right? Which is clearly a house key.
A house key?
Which is attached to a key ring. Which is just made of glass or something like that. Inside also is a receipt from last year from an electronics shop. So clearly somebody has used this bag, right? Now, I'm staggered by this.
How
but
weird.
It started taking a closer look at the bag, and it started to look like it had been slightly worn around, where it was, where the clasp is, basically.
Right.
And I'm now going to, go and shout 50 Shades of Blue murder at these people, because clearly this is a bag that's either been taken out by somebody who works in the shop and put back.
Right.
But what I can't understand is if you did that, why would you not take your house key out of it?
Well, maybe it wasn't a house key.
Well, it's very much a Yale key.
Yeah.
Which looks like, it's certainly not a key for the bag.
So have you taken the bag back?
Well, no, because I only discovered it like last night as I was coming up here.
This is very
I'm going to have to take it back next week and say, what on earth are you doing selling a handbag that's clearly been used by somebody?
Yeah, but also it could have been bought by somebody, used for a week, and then brought back.
Well, I wondered about that.
And said, I'm sorry, this is not suitable.
I've
only used it once, but it doesn't match my dress or something.
But surely, and I'm sure people do that a lot, but surely before you did something like that, you wouldn't put it back on display without checking the contents, would you?
It could be. Could be that
I think there's some kind of jiggery pokery afoot.
Hang on. Could be that the lady involved is into adultery, and that Yale key was the key to the house of her lover.
Oh yeah,
that's what I think.
You've got a big imagination there, haven't you?
I have. You have to have an imagination.
I wondered. If you had a massive
life.
imagination, you could think it would be the beginning of some kind of movie, like a game. Right? You find out where the key fits. But I haven't got time for that.
No.
I just think it's somebody in the shop who's decided that, they fancy taking the bag out. But what I can't understand is why they would then leave their key in it.
What about the electronics receipt? What was that for?
It was for a well-known electronics shop where several things were bought to the tune of about £400 or £500.
Really?
And the receipt,
£500?
And the receipt is in the bag. It's really strange.
A mystery. Could be an Enid Blyton mystery. By the way, that's caused quite a bit of interest on the old social networking.
Well,
I did in the
Enid
Blyton quiz.
My favourite question was, could you name the, what was it, the famous 7 or whatever they were?
Secret 7.
Secret 7,
yes.
Which was so secret you didn't know any of their names.
I gave you 8 names.
First of all, you named 8 people, none of whom had the name of any of the Secret 7.
That's not my fault.
Fantastic. We have to work out what the quiz is going to be on this week, by the way.
Oh, I already know.
What do you know?
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Why Napoleon?
Because I've decided. I was rereading stuff about him over the weekend. Okay. A fascinating man.
All right.
Yes.
You know it's the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's assassination this week.
It is indeed, and it's the 200th anniversary of Waterloo in about 2 months' time.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's not this week then, is it?
No, it's not this week, but I mean, might as well strike while the iron's hot, so to speak.
All right, well, so we'll do it on Napoleon Bonaparte then.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be the quiz coming up on Thursday night. Loads more coming up next on the 2 Mics.
Oui. On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The pressure's on now.
Relieve the itch. Talk Sport.
Tear the heart right out of me.
This was recorded before they had the Dolby technology to reduce the hiss, obviously.
That's right, yeah, it was a bit hissy. You know why we're playing that now?
Why?
You won't believe this. This is great news for you, Mike. Great news for you. Yeah. You have the morals of an alley cat.
So you've said
before. I've accused you of that many times.
Many people have said that you're wrong to accuse me of that, given your history of adultery.
No, I'm sorry. I was only ever the co-respondent in adultery. You were the instigator of it.
Well, you can still be named as the co-respondent in a divorce
You were the
suit.
instigator of it on numerous occasions, far too many to actually number on this show, because we're a family show, and I don't want people to think that I work with somebody who, honestly, has degenerated the moral tone of this show in a big way. But the reason we're playing that is that you won't believe it, but Britain's most senior woman judge says adultery should no longer be a reason for a divorce.
Yeah.
I just can't believe you can actually... Adultery should not be grounds for a divorce. How mad is that?
Well, I mean, basically anything can be grounds for a divorce, I suppose, is the bottom line. I mean,
yeah, but going around and rogering somebody else when you've made those solemn...
You put it so nicely.
Yeah, solemn wedding vows...
Well, some people fall in love with somebody else.
To the woman that you're living with and having children with is so despicable.
Right.
I find
but it's not so
appalling.
despicable that you were able to somehow overlook that whenever any of these married women came your way.
I never took the vows.
Yeah, but,
I never took the vows.
Did you not say to them the idea that they were so despicable as to come looking for you when they were already having made promises to other people?
I was improving their life.
Yeah, but you didn't find that despicable.
No, I was improving their life. I wasn't degenerating their life. I was improving their life.
No, but why did you not say to them you're behaving in a despicable way and you should stop immediately?
I don't think they were behaving in a despicable way.
So what's the difference
If they'd have met me before they met the husband, they'd have married me if I'd have asked them to marry me.
Well, what's the difference
But I didn't.
Well, what's the difference between what they did and what I was doing?
The difference is that you stood in a church in front of a minister.
Not for very long, mind you.
And
the shortest wedding ceremony ever.
And in the company of God.
Yeah.
And you made those vows for better or worse, in sickness and in health.
Yeah.
And then violated them in the most repulsive fashion on a multiplicity number of occasions.
Really?
And that's why sometimes I wonder how I can possibly work with you.
Yeah, I do find it amazing, actually, that you can work with me, given how strongly you feel about these things. But also I find it even more amazing that you didn't feel that strongly when you were, as you put it, rogering half the married secretaries in the Express.
You are only trying to provide red herrings here. Let me read this to you.
Yeah.
The law making infidelity a marriage breaker should be struck from the statute book, along with any idea that one party is at fault, according to Supreme Court Deputy President Baroness Hale.
Yes.
She said the system that allows an unfaithful spouse to be blamed for the collapse of a marriage is unsatisfactory, and a new no-fault divorce law would take the acrimony out of breakups.
Yeah, well, I think that's true in a way, but also you've got the situation where you have like irreconcilable differences, which I had explained to me when I was going through a divorce, that you can make that into basically anything. You know, for example, irreconcilable differences could be something as simple as, you know, not liking the way that your ex-wife or your soon-to-be ex-wife irons the clothes, or the way that she cooks dinner, or the way that she works unusual hours.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
So you can actually find any number of reasons to get divorced if you want to.
Like she's got a job and you haven't, or something like that.
Something like that.
I mean, now this Lady Hale, said couples should be required to make arrangements about money and looking after children before they're granted a divorce, and that such a system would end bitter courtroom struggles. Well, she may be right there.
I think she's got a point, hasn't she?
Well, anyway, she's 70 now, right? And she's a radical feminist, so that comes as no surprise, really. That
Why?
she... Well, because radical feminists are the sort of people...
She's saying it's not fair to blame a woman or a woman's adultery for the breakup of a marriage.
No, she's saying any adultery.
Any adultery.
Any adultery, yeah. Right. And I'm not being rude to her. The reason I'm saying it doesn't surprise me she's a radical feminist is that feminists always want to mess around with the marriage vows.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being a feminist.
Because there's nothing wrong with being a feminist, but I frankly like the marriage vows still to be based on a Christian faith.
Really?
And they like it to...
Well, not everybody does.
Well, in a Christian church, in a Church of England church...
But lots of people don't get married in a Christian church.
I know, but what I'm saying is...
So you say it's all right for them to commit adultery, then?
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is...
I think you're a bit muddled on this one.
No, I'm not muddled at all.
I think it's very clear that you're muddled.
I'm not muddle-headed. Baroness Hale of Richmond, now 70, former legal academic's marriage to fellow Manchester University lecturer John Hoggett, with whom she had a daughter, ended in 1992.
Oh, yeah. Does it say why?
No, it doesn't say why.
Yeah.
Her ideas
because of adultery.
Her ideas on divorce law developed in the 1980s at the Law Commission, and she helped frame reforms, including the 1996 Family Law Act, which many campaigned against. What are you laughing at?
Just reading it out.
Well, before it was dropped in 2001. I'm just saying that this woman has clearly got a bee in a bonnet about marriage.
Well, she may have.
You shouldn't mess around with marriage. Marriage is what... In my view,
as somebody who's never been married,
we are a Christian country.
Well,
the
in
Church
your view,
of England, the Church of England,
everybody would agree with that.
Is the standard faith, and the Queen is the head of the Church of England, right?
Yeah.
And we have an Archbishop of Canterbury. Excuse me. In my view, the family unit of mother and father.
We don't have an Archbishop of Canterbury in your
and
view.
children. The nuclear family, that's what I'm saying. Nuclear family is the bedrock of our society.
Don't you think you belong in some kind of 1950s dark room?
No, I don't.
Do you not realise that things have moved on a little bit since then?
I tell you what I belong to.
What do you belong to?
I belong to an organisation which is alien to you.
Yeah, what's that?
And that is the silent majority.
The silent majority?
Silent majority.
Well, I wish you'd be silent once in a while.
No.
Considering that you belong to the silent majority.
What the silent majority do
There's nothing silent about you.
No, the silent majority, except I'm a... Actually,
are you the voice of the silent majority? Is that how you see yourself?
I was going to say, I'm the unsilent member of the silent majority.
Yeah,
okay?
that would work. Yeah,
the unsilent member of the silent majority, because I'm prepared to speak out for the values and the moral compass that we all need in life.
Well, I'm very glad.
When others are frightened to stick their head above the parapet for fear of having their buns shot off by those who mock and deride old-fashioned views in modern society.
Well, there's nothing wrong with preaching from the whited sepulchre of hypocrisy, which is entirely what you're doing, because, of course, people will remember your charming story of how you nicked the 2 football tickets from the guy who was in a coma because he wasn't able to use them to go and watch England. They'll also be very happy to learn about a complete and utter lifetime of what can only be described as, petty criminal activity that you've been involved in since the age of about 7, right?
Excuse me.
And also, let's not forget...
Were you a child shoplifter or not?
Let's not forget...
Were you a child shoplifter?
When I was at school, occasionally,
yes. Yeah, thieving...
But not anymore, you'll be glad to know. And also, your complete and utter double standards and hypocrisy when it comes to the treatment of a wedding and a marriage as some kind of sacrosanct event, which you've clearly not behaved like. And
I've never violated the wedding vows, I keep telling you that.
Here's one from Come On You Hatters once again. He says, double standards, Porky. Stop picking on Mr. Graham.
I'm not picking on Mr. Graham. He's big enough to defend himself, but his record as a marital partner is so disgraceful, it's impossible to ignore.
Well, you may say that.
It's impossible to ignore.
Here's a text from somebody who's got some advice for you. Right. Porky doesn't give his name. Says, you are being conned. It costs more to produce fat than lean meat. That's why we bred all the fat out of animals, to make them cheaper to produce. You should pay less for lean ham. Shouldn't pay more.
No, I think you pay more for it because it takes longer to process, because it's very lean, I do like lean ham. It's great. What are you laughing at?
I just love your enthusiasm for lean ham.
I do.
Brilliant.
I like it with cheese, actually.
Lean ham and cheese?
Ham and cheese.
Low-fat cheese?
Low-fat cheese on a baguette.
So low-fat cheese. I don't think that's good for you.
A bit of mature cheddar or something like that
I
on a
thought
baguette.
you believed
Very
that stuff that we saw in the papers the other week, which said that eating all this low-fat stuff actually isn't any better for you.
No, I think... no.
You said you've been telling the rest of us about that for ages.
That is true. That is true. But, I mean, that's not the point. The point is, I don't like the taste of fatty stuff in things like bacon.
Well, you like a pork pie.
Yeah, but pork pie hasn't got any fat in it. No, it hasn't got any fat in it.
Of course it has.
No, I'm talking about, like rind and that sort of stuff and gristle and all that. I can't stand all that. Now,
well, you can't really go into a shop and ask for some ham with gristle on it, can you?
No, but you do get poor quality ham, which has got like white bits in it. You know what I mean? Don't like white bits.
No, okay.
Now, the reason I never have a bacon sandwich out, like in a cafe or anything like that, is because when I say, look, I want my bacon with every ounce of fat removed, please. So you cut the rind off, you cut the white bits off in the middle. Yeah. I only want meat, I don't want anything else. Yeah. They usually charge me about 3 times the price of a normal bacon sandwich.
Well, why don't you just say, I don't want to pay any more for it, you're taking stuff off?
Well, because then you're left with hardly any bacon in it. So to make it a decent bacon sandwich, you have to buy about 2 or 3 and have them all, put all the bacon into one bacon roll. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I find, rather oppressive. Once again, I'm being victimised against purely because I am.
Because you're the voice of the silent majority.
The silent majority.
I don't think you'd find anybody in the great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland who would actually agree with you on most things. So I don't think you are the voice of the silent majority.
You see, you try to promote this image of me as being some kind of unhinged individual who goes around with mad ideas.
Not at all.
No, exactly. And if I'm one of these days, I'm going to sue you for that. I'm telling you.
You're going to sue me?
Yeah.
Oh, I look forward to that. We're going to talk about Manuel Pellegrini coming up a little while, but next it's winners and losers, and we're going to find out who have been the big winners and the big losers of this sporting weekend.
We know who's going to win this one.
This is Talk Sport.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
A terrific performance.
Turn of pace and eye for goal.
Shout about it.
Talk Sport.
Talk Sport Extra Time with the two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, and one of our regular features, of course, is the Winners and Losers. Takes place every Monday night going into Tuesday morning. I'm hugely
confident.
Are you? There's been some fantastic winners and some fantastic losers over the course of the weekend, so I'm expecting some stellar suggestions from both of you. Mr. Toby Gilly still hasn't yet managed to win a frame of this, but you never know. You never know.
I have.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, I thought you gave it up the last time you won one, didn't you?
No, I won one before, didn't I? And then you decided to take a point away from me for no reason at all.
That means you didn't win.
Well, I did, though.
I didn't win. If you think so.
You took a point away for something that was factually incorrect, and therefore you should give it back to me, and officially...
What did I take a point away from you?
Rhapsody in Blue.
Yeah, no, Rhapsody in Blue was not factually incorrect. It was completely correct assumption.
I did win in the end.
Anyway, you haven't won.
Why don't we get on with it?
Yeah, instead of moaning and groaning about the past, I think you should embrace the present and give us your three losers of the weekend.
Okay, my first loser is Nico Rosberg. Talk about sour grapes. My goodness gracious me. He comes second. It's a decent Formula One finish.
Heaven forbid somebody should complain about not coming first, eh?
Well, yes.
There's a bit of hypocrisy
He was moaning about how Lewis Hamilton, who won the race by quite a distance, it has to be said, pretty comfortably from his opponent, was not going fast enough, effectively. Yeah. And it meant that he was backed up and allowed Sebastian Vettel to get close to him a few times.
It's almost as ridiculous as claiming that you once won this and in fact lost.
Well, obviously I did win this, but he at no point actually was ahead in this particular race. Lewis Hamilton won it from start to finish. And, he sort of seems to think that just because they're in the same team, Lewis Hamilton should risk his own result when he's strolling to victory.
It's not going to end well, is it, this season, once again?
Absolute nonsense.
Somebody's going to crash into somebody
Lewis Hamilton is far and away the better driver of the two of them. They've got the same car. Rosberg was never close, and it was pathetic to try and blame his teammate for effectively making the race a little bit more interesting, if that is the case.
Yes.
Pretty
far,
obvious.
far closer.
Pretty obvious.
So Nico Rosberg. My second, and we have touched on it a little earlier during the show, North East's Premier League football fans, Newcastle and Sunderland fans, these are Premier League standard supporters who are backing clubs whose owners in particular and players to an extent treat them with total contempt. Newcastle and Sunderland are falling apart at the seams. Pathetic performances over the weekend, and their long-term prospects look shocking. I don't know if you realise that this is 60 years now in May since Newcastle last won a trophy, and it could be that long again before they do.
It's a long way off. Okay, that's not bad. I like that one. It's better than Rosberg.
My final one is Cambridge. Yeah. Cambridge University. They lost the men's boat race. They lost the women's boat race. Yeah. They even this weekend lost the goat race.
Did they?
I'm sure you've heard about this. One pygmy goat from Cambridge, one pygmy goat from Oxford, racing in East London, a 200-metre race at Spitalfields Farm. Hamish of Oxford beat Hugo of Cambridge, and just to top it off, it meant that Hugo had to watch Hamish eat the edible vegetable trophy.
I quite like
terrible weekend for Cambridge University.
Yeah, terrible weekend, and I noticed that the University of Trent weren't in the boat racing.
No, that's right. Yeah,
despite the rowing fraternity.
Quite irrelevant.
Okay, let's hear your losers, Mr.
Right,
Parry.
my losers are fantastic. First off, Daniel Levy. Okay, the chairman of Spurs. I'm told he didn't even turn up for the game on Saturday because an ex-manager was coming back again and imposed anguish upon the club. And Mr. Levy now, I think, has appointed 13 managers, and still he hasn't found what he's looking for, OK?
Right.
So that's number one loser. Now, the number two loser is a man called, what's his name? Ken Brinston, OK?
Ken Brinston?
Ken Brinston.
Yeah. Who's he?
He is the managing director of the Atlas Iron Limited Company, the fourth biggest producer of iron ore in the world, which has gone into virtual liquidation since the price of iron ore sunk to nothing.
As you predicted.
As I predicted, he's had to lay off 500 workers. The company is going deep south very, very fast indeed, and he's at the helm of it, OK?
OK.
And the third one, perhaps this is even better than that one, is Neil Doncaster. And Neil Doncaster is the chief executive of the Scottish Professional Football League. And the reason I call him the loser of the week is because, get this as a statistic, right? Bristol Rovers, the Vanarama Conference side, had a bigger crowd at the weekend than every single match in the Scottish Premiership.
Really?
a conference side in this country...
That's not bad.
...had a bigger crowd than every Premiership game in the Scottish Premiership at the weekend. And Neil Doncaster is the chief exec of the Scottish Professional Football League, which controls the Premiership. I would say that is losing on a huge scale.
That is losing on a huge scale. I think that just edges out Cambridge, actually, which I was going for, because I didn't like your first two very much, but we'll give you the point for that one. Let's hear from the winners. No losers from the Masters, I dare say, but maybe some winners from the Masters. Let's hear from your winners, Mr. Gillies.
I think it's my turn to go first, isn't it?
Hey?
Isn't it my turn to go
Surely
first?
I decided whose turn it is to go first.
Oh, really?
Well, since you've got the point from being the loser, if you want to go first, you can.
No, I'm fine.
I mean, I don't want to upset anybody here.
No, Toby, go on.
You know, I'm a bit disturbed about the way everybody's always complaining about the way this all turns out.
No, Toby,
well, we all know it's a fix anyway, so I don't know why we bother, but, you know...
Should you deduct a point for that?
We plough on.
I shouldn't accept that kind of accusation. It's shocking.
We plough on
I won't deduct a point on this occasion.
Well, thanks. About time. About time I was shown some mercy.
Have you ever heard of contempt of court?
Contempt of court?
Yeah.
This isn't
when you go into a courtroom.
This isn't a court.
Yeah, it is effectively.
When
you go into a courtroom and you continually insult the person who's sitting in the judge's position, which is me, sometimes you can end up being fined.
Can we get on with it,
sometimes you can end up getting jailed if you carry on.
It'd be interesting to see you try and jail me.
Well, you know.
My first winner of the weekend is the Championship, the Sky Bet Championship. This is the division that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
4 games to go now, 2 points between the top 4.
There's some big games coming up tonight, I think.
There certainly are. Middlesbrough against Wolves is going to be massive. Bournemouth and Norwich also in action. 1 point between 5th and 8th. There's been some incredible football, some fantastic goals over the weekend. For me, this season, the league itself is better than the Premier League. It's astonishing that we're still in this situation now with absolutely no idea who's going to be top, second.
Have you not done this one before, though?
I think he has.
Well, I think it's a winner of each individual weekend, and I'm judging it purely on this weekend.
Okay.
Amazing.
All right, what else you got?
My second is Ian Bell.
Okay.
What a magnificent performance by Ian Bell yesterday, and a huge one, not just to resurrect England's chances of winning the first test against the West Indies in Antigua, but to actually raise some prospect that England might have a decent sort of summer on their hands, because we were all so down about English cricket at the moment. It's been an absolute disaster recently. Yeah. Ian Bell, though, almost single-handedly, 143. They were 34 for 3. It was an astonishing start. Terrible.
Trott and Cook were dreadful, weren't they?
Not to mention some personal redemption for him as well, because the last time England were in Antigua, he was dropped. So Mr. Consistency striking back.
Okay.
My final winner, Manchester United. Once again, the pride of Manchester. Manchester City's collapse has begun. It had already begun before that particular match, but they've proven now that they are pride of Manchester. And according to many Manchester United fans, they're still in the title race.
Yes, of course. Many of them are, although many of them are also saying that's idiotic to say that. But those are all 3 quite good ones. Mr. Parry, what do you have to counter them?
Pretty obvious. I've got 3 astonishing ones, right? First of all, Trevor Hemmings.
Trevor Hemmings
is the owner of Many Clouds, who won the Grand National.
Oh, yeah.
But that is the 3rd time that man has won the Grand National with 3 different horses.
Right.
That is an astonishing achievement.
That's not bad.
For anybody in the national hunt field. The second one is Judy Murray.
Oh, yeah.
And Judy Murray is a winner because she's got sport's biggest whinging brat off her hands now that he got married at the weekend. She's no longer in control of the whinging brat.
She's now the mother-in-law.
She's the mother of the whinging brat, and the wife now has to look after Andy Murray.
Why is he a whinging brat?
Well, he always has been, hasn't he?
What's he whinged about?
He whinges about everything.
What was the last thing he whinged about?
He doesn't whinge as much as Toby, to be fair.
No, he doesn't, no. But the last thing he whinged about was having cramp during a game. That's no good. That's a whinger. A whinger is not going to be a winner, as proven by the fact that when he whinges, he doesn't win. Now, the third one, and this, I think, will clinch it, Michael Greller.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Greller is the caddy to the man who has become the world superstar.
Jordan Spieth.
Oh,
yeah.
But Michael Greller left his job at Texas University as a maths lecturer to take up the offer to be the caddy to Spieth when Spieth was 809 on the world list of golfers. And the man walked out of a very good and secure job which gave him great standing in his local community, to take a chance on becoming Spieth's caddy, and now, of course, will become a multimillionaire in his own right, as well.
Because he takes, 10%, 20%?
15%, I think, or something like that. Yeah. And already, Spieth has earned $30 million.
That's very good.
I call him a winner.
I think that's brilliant. I think that wins it for me. Michael Corella and Neil Doncaster. Toby, I'm terribly sorry.
Surely you should get a point deducted for that ridiculous noise.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but even if he did, he's won by 2-0. So even if I did take one off him, which I'm not going to do on this occasion, I think actually those are two fantastic winners and two losers. And Toby, you did very well there, but they were just a bit too obvious, I'm afraid.
Yes,
but thank you very much indeed. We'll see you next week for another edition of the Star Chamber. This is Talk Sport.
No, just talent.
Talk Sport.
And it's in.
A diving header at the end of a 50-yard run.
From the root to the tip.
Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. We are the two Mikes, of course. The podcast problem seems to have been fixed, so there will be another podcast coming out in about 5 or 6 hours' time, I would say. Find it on iTunes. I've had a tweet from somebody who says they've got this, Barry says they've got this Connect cycle, as the world's first connected pedal, which can turn your bike into a smart bike, easy to install on any kind of bike. It adds instantly activity tracking and anti-theft protection, so I don't know what that's all about.
Really?
Now, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, including the shows that we've got coming up in Portsmouth and London. The Portsmouth show's, May the 30th, I think, isn't it?
Portsmouth, May 30th. London is June the 7th. May 30th is a Saturday night. Tickets are selling very nicely down on the South Coast, so please don't miss out there. Tickets are selling even more nicely at the St James Theatre in London.
The following Sunday, right?
The following Sunday, a week Sunday after Portsmouth, in the St James Theatre. A beautiful theatre, by the way. I was absolutely astonished when I stood on the stage there and looked up into the crowd. It goes up into the heavens. It's a beautiful theatre. And again, the tickets are going very, very nicely there. So please don't miss out.
We'll be releasing the box office details on at the two Mics, of course. Now, before we talk about a couple of other things that we've got to get to, I must talk to you about Manuel Pellegrini, because I'll be talking to Tim Vickery coming up in the next hour, and he's always got something interesting to say, because his next job is believed to be the national manager of the Chile team.
Already lined up,
which he might go and do if he gets fired. I mean, they're now talking about maybe firing him.
Football, that.
Well, they're talking about firing him now before the end of the season.
You've got to remember, I've been to Chile and I've been to the Atacama
Of course you
Desert,
have, yeah.
the fourth biggest desert in the world.
And you saw the
caveman
cave paintings.
Yeah, that's right. And so I would say that it's a lovely country, Chile, and the people there are wonderful. They have great local culture and that kind of stuff. But he's a bit provincial compared to Europe and the Premier League.
And, I was looking at his records. He was at Real Madrid for a season. Yeah. And when he was at Real Madrid for a season, they had a terrible season.
I know. They finished about eighth.
They got knocked out of the Cup before the last 16, I think.
Copa del Rey.
Yeah. And even though they scored a lot of points, it wasn't as many points as, obviously, he won the league. And so, I mean, all this talk of him having had success in Spain.
Didn't he come from Mallorca to
Well, he
Manchester
came from Malaga,
City?
I think.
Malaga,
Mallorca. And he was at Villarreal, and he got Villarreal quite far into the Champions League. But, I mean, anyway, he's going to look back on his couple of years at Manchester City as pretty traumatic, I would have thought, wasn't he? Well, I mean, of course, he won the league, but now
think so.
It's awful.
Didn't win the league with any conviction, though.
No.
What I find most intriguing about the story is twofold, really. Firstly, that Benitez has been lined up as a possible replacement on
Rafa,
a temporary basis to keep the seat warm for Pepe Guardiola. But why would he want to leave Bayern Munich? I just don't know.
Well, if they win the Champions League and he feels like he's got nothing else to do,
move on again, a bit like Jose, no problem. But the other most intriguing one is lining up Patrick Vieira to take over. Some say on a temporary basis if he go, if they sack Pellegrini after who are they playing this weekend?
West Ham.
West Ham. If he loses to West Ham at home, which I don't think will happen, he might go then. But we're back into the old star footballer becomes star manager syndrome, and it very rarely works.
Well, we haven't seen it, I suppose. I mean, Ryan Giggs was the last one we saw, wasn't it? And
it didn't work for Ryan Giggs.
Right.
No, exactly. He lost a vital game, didn't he, in towards the end of the season? But what I'm saying is, I just don't know. It's like a guy who is flying very successfully a propeller-driven aeroplane from Liverpool to the Isle of Man, suddenly being told, by the way, your next trip is in a jumbo jet from London Heathrow to JFK.
Right.
I mean, it's a completely different discipline.
But Vieira has been involved in the organisation for quite some time, hasn't he? I mean, a lot of Arsenal fans have asked the question why he wasn't at Arsenal doing what he's doing at Manchester City.
Maybe.
But, I mean, at least he's in with the kind of, the culture of the club, if you like.
Yeah, but it's this idea that because you were a very successful footballer, and he was, of course, he was captain of the Invincibles, wasn't he? You will make a great manager. It very rarely works. Alan Shearer tried it on a brief sort of saute into management.
Well, he tried to save them from going down, didn't he? Which he couldn't do.
He couldn't do. And
there's been lots of other examples, haven't there? I mean, Tim Sherwood was a reasonably good player. He's doing all right.
Yeah, but he's not. Tim Sherwood couldn't do the Manchester City job now on the basis of the lack of experience.
No, true.
And the length of time he's been in the job.
Couldn't do any worse than Pellegrini's doing at the moment, could they?
Well, he could, because he's won them a league, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about in the last kind of, half a season.
I totally agree with you. But I just think to take on a new man, I just don't think it will happen, because the bosses of Manchester City want their club to become a stellar, that's the word, a stellar European outfit, i.e. talked about in the same breath as Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, Juventus and Manchester City.
And of course, one of the things they say about that is that, of course, we want to create stability for managers. Well, I'm sorry, one thing they don't have Real Madrid is stability for managers.
No, they don't.
One thing they don't even have at Barcelona, really, lately, is stability for managers. So why have this obsession with stability for managers? Bring them in, kick them out.
Managers do get sacked at Real Madrid after winning the Champions League, don't they?
Yeah.
That has happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ancelotti may win the Champions League this year, and he's probably going to go.
Yeah, he probably is going to go, yeah. And I mean, Ancelotti won the double at Chelsea when he went.
Exactly.
That's the sort of thing that happens with the top-flight managers. Anyway, I want to talk to you about cheese toasties.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Now, do you like cheese toasty?
I'm not a big fan of toasties, to be honest. I find them a bit too hot.
No, I do. I like cheese and ham toasty.
Do you mean made in a toasty machine?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like everybody, I've got one of those, but I very rarely get it out.
When you go abroad, for some unknown reason, you can always get a hot cheese and ham toasty in a cellophane packet, can't you?
Really?
Yes.
Where did you go abroad then?
Well, places.
When I was in Turkey, I didn't see any cheese and ham toasties.
No, you don't get them in Turkey. I get them in Spain.
I didn't see them in Spain either.
Yeah, everywhere in Spain.
Rubbish.
Every bar you go into in Spain, if it's late at night or something like that, or you just feel like a snack, you say, "Oh, could I have
I don't go into
ham and cheese toasty, please?"
I don't go into bars late at night when I'm in Spain, because I'm usually with my family, so we normally go out for a nice dinner, actually.
Oh, you save for going into bars late at night when you're not with your family, don't you?
Well, if I'm
what was the latest you were drinking till over the weekend?
Over the weekend?
Yeah. Be honest. Let's be honest about this.
I will be honest. I would say probably about 1:30 last night.
Well, that's early for you at the weekends.
Well, not really.
You normally stay up till 3 a.m.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Rubbish.
Yes, you did.
No, because I get up with the kids in the morning.
No, your children were away last weekend.
Oh, last weekend?
The weekend before this one.
Oh, you asked me about this last weekend, just past.
No, I said normally on a weekend.
Yeah, well, normally on a weekend,
and you were up till 3 a.m.
1:30.
You were up till 3 a.m. the week before.
I was up till 3 a.m. the previous week. Yeah, they were away.
Disgraceful.
What's wrong with that?
And what sort of state were you in the following day to take life on?
I didn't have anything to do the following day.
To look life in the face and snarl at it, eh?
I don't go around snarling at life. That's your role.
Kind of shape
because you're so bitter and twisted about everything.
I'm not bitter and twisted about anything. Right, now getting back to the cheese toasty. Look at this report I found.
What have you found? Where have you found this? Was this in the Cheese Toasty Today or something?
That's right. Yeah. It was in the Cheesemakers Chronicle.
Yeah, right.
The sort of thing that you were trying to work for once.
Chronicle. I probably would have applied for a job there, actually, if there'd been one going.
Yeah, right. It says here, grilled cheese lovers are more active in the bedroom.
Is that right?
And are more charitable and love to travel.
Well, they can't be you, then.
Those are the somewhat bizarre conclusions drawn up by a survey conducted in the US among users of an online dating website, right? Now, it says, according to the poll, if you love grilled cheese sandwiches, you're going to be much busier in the bedroom than those who turn their noses up at the snack. The company surveyed 4,600 members and found that those having sex at least once a month, of those having sex, 73% of them loved grilled cheese, compared with 63% who did not.
What a bizarre thing to say.
I know, it's very odd, isn't it?
But, of course, in America, grilled cheese means something completely different, doesn't it? It doesn't actually mean grilled cheese to us, because what it actually means is it's a fried cheese sandwich, effectively. You go into a diner and ask for a grilled cheese. Yeah. They do it in a frying pan.
Whereas in this country, it's like cheese on toast.
It's under the grill.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they call that the broiler, don't they?
Now, there's a dating website called Scout. That's what it's called,
Scout.
SKOUT.
Oh dear.
Found that 81% of those who love grilled cheese have donated time, money or food to other humans in need. And
that includes you then, because you go around donating stale lager to people.
Well, I'd give it away if I don't want to drink it to those.
Did you make any charitable acts
of
giving away over the weekend?
Well, there's one guy, I'm not joking, and he sits just...
it's down in Portsmouth.
It's down in Portsmouth. Yeah. He sits on the walkway to the ferries and get off on the Portsmouth side.
Right.
And he's filthy, flea-ridden old, individual.
What sort of age is he, would you say?
Well, you can't tell with these people because they're probably about 32 or something. Right. They look 82.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They sit there with their filthy little gloves on, the money for the homeless, you know.
Yeah.
And I just look at him with utter contempt.
Do you not ever think of giving him something to help him out?
No,
because... How about a cheese toastie?
No, that would encourage him to sit there in his filthy blanket, you know, and bother passers-by when he should get off his backside and go and find himself a job.
Well, he probably can't get a job if he's not that clean.
Well, look, I tell you what, he's sitting on the edge of the English Channel.
Yeah.
You could actually throw yourself in and clean yourself up. No, you can. Why not?
Oh, what, going smelling like an old whelk?
Well, it's better than smelling like, you know, a sort of, well, puke-ridden, you know, down and out like he is. And I just wish he really would get his act together and do something about it. I find him revolting.
Yeah.
And
is he there every time you go over?
Yeah, most times.
And people give him money?
Yeah, people throw me
this is not filling me with joy about your Christian attitude to life.
Well, I'd like to help people who can't help themselves. Right. That guy got out of his filthy, flea-ridden blanket, went and did something. It would be better.
Has he got a dog?
No, this one hasn't got a dog.
A lot of them have a dog, don't they?
Now, this is also interesting. The poll also found that 10% of participants remove the crust from their cheese toastie, 47% add extras such as pesto or tomato, while 53% simply prefer just cheese.
Really?
I don't remove the crust. I think the crust is the best part of it.
Well, they are, yeah. Oliver has tweeted in at IROMG. He says, I lived in Spain for 5 months and there were no cheese and ham toasties in bars. Utter rubbish.
No, there are. There are. Don't worry, there are.
Well, where have you been in Spain where they've had cheese and tomato? Are you sure it wasn't at the airport or something?
Places like Malaga and...
really?
And Marbella.
Because I once went to...
Puerto Banús.
Yeah, I went down to that neck of the woods once on one of my reporting sojourns, and we were looking for that woman who'd left her kids home alone, and she was down there somewhere.
Shocking.
And I checked into the Marbella Club. Do you know the Marbella Club, which is very nice, very expensive?
Yes, I do,
And we largely just checked in there, a bunch of us, because we wanted to use the phones, because, again, in those days, no mobile phones, right?
Exactly.
And they would only let us use the phones if we actually checked in and got a room.
Sure.
So I got a room, and we were all a bit hungry, because we hadn't really eaten much, and we ordered a round of cheese sandwiches.
Right.
And it was the worst cheese sandwich you've ever seen in your life, because the Spanish don't really eat cheese sandwiches, right? So what they brought was they found this kind of rather horrible-looking white bread, which they'd obviously bought from some horrible supermarket, especially for us. And just had large chunks of very, very hard Spanish cheese. It wasn't cheddar, anything like that. And it certainly wasn't toasted. And they charged them like 25 quid a time for this.
That's disgraceful.
It was awful.
I remember once in Turin, when I was doing some job in Turin.
Did they have cheese toasties there?
No, I asked for a ham. And
lean ham, obviously.
Lean ham. And you're absolutely right. What came was some very hard bread rolls.
Yeah.
And the ham inside was not ham, it was uncooked bacon.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Right.
With all the rind still on it. Uh-huh. It was inedible.
Well, it was probably that special Italian, like Serrano ham or something. Very nice.
No, it wasn't. I can get by with that. This was uncooked bacon.
Yeah.
And they simply, we had a language problem. They didn't
speak English.
No, they didn't, no. And
that's what you regard as a language problem in Italy?
Of course I do.
Well, why didn't you speak a bit of Italian?
You don't need to speak Italian to get on in the world, but you need to speak English.
Well, you do,
and I'm not
being some lean ham.
No, I'm not being a little Englander. I'm just saying that, if you want to get on in the commercial world, bearing in mind that English is widely spoken in America, in Australia,
which are English-speaking countries.
Yeah, in Hong Kong. In China, in India.
I don't think all parts of China you'd find English is
you would in Shanghai and Beijing and Hong Kong. And
I don't know, though, because if you go to a place
English
like
is the national language of India.
Well, like when you went to Russia, for example, and they've got a different alphabet. They've got the Cyrillic alphabet. If you go to China or you go to Japan or something like that. I mean, I've not been to Japan, but people that have gone there have said it's really difficult because all the signs are in Japanese.
Exactly.
And you can't make them out at all.
Exactly. And even the symbols are like Japanese symbols, not
English
English
symbols.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they are, And also, very few people in Japan speak English. Right. So if you're at a railway station, you want something as simple as...
Have you been to Japan?
No.
How do you know then?
Well, because I talk to people who've been there. No, I'm telling you. One of the reasons I haven't gone is I think it'd be difficult to get around.
It would, yeah. And they've got no lean ham either.
I mean, I was in charge of,
Talking about raw fish there.
I was in charge of a massive media organisation when the World Cup was in Japan and South Korea. No, I think it was the Press Association
was
at the time.
Okay, right.
And therefore I had to direct my people there and help them through these travails, these problems,
Right.
And the problem is, even if you're on a railway station, normally speaking, as you quite rightly say, in France
you can
or
figure
Italy,
out what's going on.
Germany, just by a number. What number is my platform? What number is my train?
Yeah.
But you can't in Japan because it's, as you quite rightly say, it's all completely... And same in Russia. Now, I've been to Russia many times.
Yeah.
Russia's the most difficult country in the world to work out signs, letters, indications, all that kind of stuff. So that's why most people who want to get in the world should speak English, in my view.
Yeah, well, that may well be. But anyway, listen, some very exciting news coming up for all fans of Porky Vision, because you're going to look at Game of Thrones this week, aren't you?
It's on tonight.
Yeah.
And the first thing I shall do when I get home, I shall take it in and give you the verdict on Thursday.
Good. Wednesday morning into Thursday, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Because tomorrow night, of course, it's Ask Porky. So you can get your questions in.
Big questions in, please.
Mr. Parry will be able to help you out with any kind of problems you may have. We're going to try and get an iron ore expert on as well over the course of the next few days.
Yeah, please do that.
See whether we can find out.
And the quiz on Thursday.
And the quiz on Thursday on Napoleon Bonaparte.
It is.
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
What? It's like sticking your face into a fire. Why mess around with the features you have? That's how I feel about my voice.